It was 12:03 a.m. when the silence broke. My phone rang, a single, sharp ring that cut through the apartment like a blade. I saw the unfamiliar number, and my blood froze. My instinct screamed danger, faster than any alarm bell I'd ever heard in a hospital emergency room. "Hello?" "Serena Vale," the voice answered. It wasn't loud, but it filled the room. Smooth. Deliberate. Chilling. "I've been waiting for you." I froze, the receiver hot against my ear. My name, spoken like it belonged to someone else. "Who is this?" I whispered. "You don't know me yet. But you will. I knew your father, and I owe him everything." Everything. The word lingered, heavy in the air. It felt like a dark contract I had just unknowingly signed. And just like that, the predictable safety of my life fractured. The truce I'd made with the world was instantly, violently over. The next morning, they arrived. Black and crimson roses, left at my door. No card. Just a note, "You're not alone. But danger is closer than you think." The crimson was too dark, too vivid against the pale paint of my porch. It felt like an invasion, a marker put on my doorstep by someone who had already measured my life. I wanted to throw them away. I wanted to cling to my denial. But the memory of that voice, that unnerving certainty, made my refusal feel hollow. I knew, deep down, I couldn't ignore the warning. I hadn't slept. Every creak, every shadow, felt like a threat. My life as a nurse, ruled by logic and sterile clarity, offered no defense against this kind of chaos. I was waiting for a crisis I couldn't diagnose. Memories of the fire clawed their way back. The helplessness. His name, I later learned, was Lorenzo Valtieri. And his voice was the sound of my past finally catching up. "Your father was a banker," Lorenzo's voice cut in when he called again. But not just a banker. He managed finances for a powerful, fractured organization. He laundered money, Serena. Millions. He built his wealth on secrets. The lie I had lived for years, the tragic accident, collapsed in that moment. It was a dizzying, sickening realization. The fire was not accidental, he continued, flatly. It was a consequence. Your father was trying to leave a life of debt and darkness. He tried to buy you safety. And now? Why me? What does this have to do with me? A missing hard drive. Evidence tied to a rival crime faction led to Malik Dravos. Your father had an exit plan, Serena. That hard drive was his insurance. It contains everything. Malik thinks you have it. Or, he knows you are the key to finding it. And he's willing to finish the job your father started. It sounded insane. Dangerous. It was the plot of a terrible film, not the life of a nurse. But the terror was too real to dismiss. I couldn't deny the chilling truth, my predictable past was never what I believed. The house I grew up in was built on blood money and deceit. I wanted to run. I wanted to block the number and disappear. But the moment the word murder replaced accident in my mind, the path was set. The need to know the truth of my parents' death was a compulsion stronger than any fear. A week later, I found it. A small, tarnished locket, hidden in a false bottom of my father's old desk. I had stared at that desk for 15 years. He must have known that one day, I would be desperate enough to find the secret. Inside, a safety deposit key. And a final command in his familiar script, "Find the truth." Curiosity overpowered caution. It was the last piece of him, and I had to see where it led. The key led me to an old, forgotten bank downtown. What I found made my stomach twist: photos of strangers, encrypted ledgers, coded messages. The man I knew, the gentle, quiet father, was a brilliant ghost layered over a dangerous operator. The deception was complete. I was caught in his lie. And Lorenzo was always there. A shadow on a bench, a car 2 lengths behind. It felt less like protection and more like surveillance, an unsettling closeness that frayed my nerves. I resented him for the debt that bound him to me. I resented the sheer weight of his presence, this constant reminder that my life was no longer mine. But the moment I held that locket, the moment I chose to unlock that box, everything changed. This was my first choice. Not for him, not for my father's twisted legacy. But for the right to finally know my own life. I was done being the passive, grieving daughter. Malik Dravos stopped being subtle. Men in dark coats, silent sentinels, began watching my apartment. I felt the focus of their collective gaze like a physical weight on my spine. My life became a cage I couldn't escape. Lorenzo stayed close. In the close confines of his car, during a tense ride to a temporary safe house on the outskirts of the city, I finally challenged him. You're telling me my parents were murdered by this man, and you're protecting me out of honor? Is that all you are, Lorenzo? A walking debt? He didn't flinch. He looked exhausted, the city lights reflecting in the unreadable depths of his eyes. Your father saved me from paying a price I didn't earn when I was a teenager. His debt is binding. He saw a different future for me, and that matters. Malik Dravos views you as the final loose end. He will bleed the city to find that drive, Serena, and if he finds you first, the debt means nothing. Our shared silence was heavy, filled with the unspoken violence of his world. I saw the weight of his loyalty, a chain he wore willingly. He wasn't saving me for me, he was honoring a ghost, and that, ironically, was the only thing I could truly trust. We spent hours decoding the messages in the safe house. The air was stale and smelled of bleach and old cement. We worked with the quiet efficiency of two people united by immediate danger. He knew the criminal language, I knew the civilian logic, the patterns of a desperate man trying to secure his family. The fear was constant, but slowly, a fragile connection began to form. We didn't need constant verbal reassurance. A glance when the floorboards creaked, a shared nod when a code was broken, it was the quiet, necessary language of survivalists. One night, I woke to the sound of his ragged breathing. He was caught in a quiet nightmare, the sound of his fear raw and unexpected. What was it? The night your father saved me. It comes back. I was supposed to die that night. I shouldn't be here. He was trapped by guilt, by a life he never chose. And I realized the bond wasn't easy, but it was real, the connection of two people irrevocably scarred by the same man's secrets. The fear was still there, but now, there was something else, a fierce, shared determination to break free from the past, together. Then came the call. A single text, chilling in its simplicity, "You're next." Malik wasn't waiting for us to figure it out, he was done waiting. He was making it personal, turning the game into a hunt. We tracked the final clue, a dead man's drop point, to an abandoned pier at the edge of the city. Fog rolled in from the water, swallowing shapes and shadows. The darkness felt absolute, only broken by the dim, sick yellow light of a distant lamp post. This is it. Stay close. I nodded. I was afraid, but the fear was overshadowed by a fierce, cold preparedness. I had found the truth, and I would fight to keep my freedom. I was done being a victim. I made my choice the moment I chose to stop running. And then they were upon us. They emerged from the fog like wraiths, filling the space with cold hostility. The fight was chaotic. Men lunged, weapons glinted. I wasn't a hero, I was a desperate woman with sharp elbows and years of suppressed rage. I grabbed a loose metal pipe and swung, aiming for the joints, the vulnerabilities I knew so well. Lorenzo moved with brutal, silent precision. He was a force of nature. But Malik Dravos himself stood back, a predator circling. I caught a glimpse of him. Cold. Merciless. You shouldn't have come here. You should have stayed home and grieved your accident. I came for the truth. Not for you. Not for power. For my life. For my choice. The battle ended as suddenly as it began. Lorenzo cornered Malik, and the man who had haunted my nights finally fell. A brutal silence settled over the pier. The threat was gone. I was shaking, soaked, exhausted, alive. The adrenaline was receding, leaving a terrifying clarity. Are you okay? I am now. Because I'm choosing my life. Not my father's, not yours, not anyone else's. The lie is over. He smiled faintly. Then we're both free. In a way. I held the locket and the hard drive. Remnants of a life I barely knew. And I understood that freedom wasn't about returning to safety. It was about choice. About claiming your life, even when the world tries to control you. Lorenzo and I walked away from the pier together. Not as protector and protected. But as two people who survived, who chose. We walked side by side, sharing the silence of those who have seen too much. I had chosen my life. And I had chosen him, not for love, not for safety, but because I wanted to. It was a clear-eyed decision, free of the debt that had started all this. She did not follow him into the dark. She walked beside him. On her terms. Chosen.